Hello and welcome back to Once Upon a Tea Time. This is going to be chapter 4 of But Friend, This Cage is Inside Out by It's_Kingston on AO3. Let's jump right in. Hello! Uraraka, intent on getting a quick nap before dinner, sat up at the sound of a familiar voice. Another person shushed the first and their footsteps stopped outside Uraraka's door. Come in! Uraraka didn't even wait for them to announce themselves before happily inviting the bear in. Sue! You didn't say you'd be bringing Mina too! They shoveled in, fitting into the small room well. They both stood in their hero costumes, instantly sending Uraraka back to the days where the entire class would pile into the hospital room to check on a certain green-haired boy. I hope that's all right. She wanted to tag along after I told her I was coming to see you, Asui said. Her eyes trailed down Uraraka, landing on the cast that wrapped her legs. She noticed the slight furrow of the frog hero's brow at the sight of them, but didn't comment. Instead, she turned her attention to vivacious Ashido. Of course! I'm glad to see two of my favorite people while I'm stuck here. It's been so boring. Uraraka huffed the last part, earning a chuckle from the pair. I'm glad you aren't hurt too bad, Ashido said, resting a hand against her chin as if she was thinking. It was while you were saving a kid, right? Yeah, Uraraka tried to force an even tone from her throat, but still ended up more tired and dejected than she wanted to. I got fired too. Izuku's coming by later to help me look around for jobs. Really? I knew they were a bunch of idiots. Ashido crossed her arms, scowling as if the company some listings. I think I heard that Hawkshold Agency needs a new rescue hero since their old one retired. Asui smiled half-heartedly. Thanks, Uraraka said, doing her best to seem optimistic, though her disposition was anything but. I'm set to be out of here around next fall. At least that was something to smile about. Woo-hoo! Ashido held out her hand for a high five. Her impossibly happy personality hadn't diminished over the years, only being reinforced by the test of time. Congrats! Mina, Asui hissed. Not really the time. Uraraka giggled, the feeling of home returning as she watched them bicker. It was all in good fun, as it always had been between the three of them. Memories of high school nights long since past hit her all at once. Nights of Mario Kart and Uno, arguing about Monopoly and gossiping about anything and everything they could think of. Ground control, Major Ochako, is your circuit dead? Ashido tapped on her shoulder, startling the woman. No, I'm fine, she laughed wryly. Just thinking about when we were in school. Oh, come on. We aren't that old yet, Ashido groaned. For once, I agree. No need to go reminiscing just yet. Enjoy the moment. Asui made a motion, as if she were waving off their worries. Yeah, when Sue agrees with me, that's how you know I'm super right, Ashido boasted, striking a pose. She's the group mom for a reason. I couldn't stand to be your mom, Asu replied teasingly. Ashido looked offended, clutching her hand to her chest dramatically. Uraraka listened to their bantering, occasionally throwing in her own opinion, but mostly glad to have the company of the rowdy pair. It was just before 3:30 that afternoon when a knock came at the door. Ashido stopped her story, looking curiously at Uraraka. Expecting someone? Maybe. I've got a few guests today, and Izuku said he'd be coming back. Uraraka offered a shrug of her shoulder, no longer limited by the IV. Come in! The knob twisted clumsily before the door opened, revealing the green-haired man. He held a small box in one hand and a bouquet of flowers in the other. Hello, Midoriya greeted, eyes drifting around the room. I'm glad you two showed up to visit. He cheerfully crossed the room, putting the flowers on the table as he'd done the previous day. Asui nodded. Of course we stopped by. She watched him adjust the flowers, making sure they sat in the sunlight. Ashido hummed. After all those hospital trips we made for you back in school, we owed Ochako one too. Midoriya tittered, hand coming up to scratching the side of his head. Sorry about that. His attention turned to Uraraka. How are you feeling? Just as all right as yesterday, she said, giving a tired smile. That's better than feeling worse, replied the man, trying to reassure her. I've got some job suggestions if you want to hear them. Yeah, sure. Are you guys going to stay in? Uraraka asked the other two. No, we'll give you your space, Ashido abruptly replied. Have fun talking about work. She gave the impression of something ulterior as she grabbed Asui by the arm and headed for the door. Oh, well, Asui followed behind her, sending a confused glance back to Uraraka before turning to leave. Bye? Bye-bye! Ashino melodically called behind her. The door shut and the footsteps receded as they went away rather quickly, not pausing to fill in Osui or let the pair inside register the events. Mina's such a kid still sometimes. Uraraka sighed, shaking her head lightly. You were saying something about work? It was true that years ago she would have gone red in the face at the mere idea of being in the same room with the charming man. Ashido didn't seem to understand that she'd grown out of that and learned to see him as a friend. Uraraka still looked up to Midoriya and admired him greatly, but she'd gotten over her romantic feelings after getting older. It was a silly childhood crush, not feelings to be acted on now, not ones to treat like the law. He blinked hard, cheeks tinted pink. Oh, yeah, sorry. Swallowing, he pulled up a chair and continued talking. Well, you know how the industry is now. Once an agency lets you go, it's hard to bounce back, even if you're the number 8 hero. I know, she looked down at her hands, fidgeting. I don't want to leave the field, though. You might not have to. Midoriya lit up, apparently waiting to hear that. See, when a hero agency lets a hero go, they normally revoke their license due to the fact that being kicked out is usually because they did something undeserving of the title hero. But you didn't! He clapped his hands together. You still have your hero license, right? Yeah? Why is that? Wait, do you mean... Yes, you can still apply for whatever job you want in the public service field and have a higher chance of getting hired. Having Japan's number 8 hero would be great for wherever you want to work. The green-haired man bounced his leg, trying to rid himself of the nervous energy that engulfed him. So, what do you think? I don't know. I think I want to stay in hero work. I'll just have a hard time picking up field work if they look at my record now. She sighed deeply, eyes shutting. Not even top heroes get exempted from this. You know that. I went against orders and put my life at risk. No one wants that liability. I can take you on board where I work, he offered, face contorting into a pitying smile. No, Uraraka muttered. You work in fighting crime. I'm a crisis aversion hero for a reason. I know. I just wanted to offer. She couldn't fault the man for trying. It was her pickiness that landed her in this rock-bottom situation. There were plenty of jobs open, yet none she would enjoy working. Once her mother was admitted into the clinic, Uraraka only had to worry about paying that. No more list of her mother's bills, just a single payment for them to help her with her life after Uraraka's father died. It was sad to see her, something Uraraka had limited to special occasions after her mother's last episode. It was more crying and yelling than she could withstand. All of this added up to one thing. She'd paid for her parents' lives, even if the current state was depressing. It meant she had done the sole thing she'd become a hero for. Maybe her retirement was in the cards. Save a kid, break some bones. Sure was a way to go out. Midoriya broke the silence. Did you want to help other heroes, or help the villains? Huh? Uraraka furrowed her brow, eyes falling on the man. The light filtered through the window behind him, illuminating his fluffy hair. It looked much more vibrant in the light, almost casting a green glow of its own. He'd really changed over the years. His mentality and strength, of course, but his features had shifted, too. The soft curves of his face had gone sharp, making him look much more serious than he was most of the time. He'd kept his hair short and curly, clashing with his strong face shape in a comedically comforting way. One thing that hadn't changed were his scars. Plentiful and jagged as ever, they lined his hands and arms, trailing up further to his neck. One soared up his jaw, stopping just below his mouth. Ochaka remembered waiting for him to get stitches after that fight, sitting nervously in the waiting room despite knowing he'd be fine. Are you a hero to help the heroes put villains in jail, or are you a hero to help villains find a better way to live? His eyes shone with something brilliant, green, and electric. I want to help everyone I can. I always have, even before my quirk. His voice dropped. Before All Might found me. I was doing whatever I could. He told me it was dangerous and made me stop. I left behind a part of myself there. But Midoriya blinked and cleared his throat. He looked at Uraraka, gave a little smile. It doesn't matter right now. Uraraka nodded, though not quite in agreement. She resisted the urge to ask about it, but thought it would dig up old wounds, especially with how the pain flashed in his eyes, wild and still not fully healed. Maybe he truly had lost part of himself that day. I always planned to help heroes take work off their plates so they can be happier, live freer, help civilians by keeping them safe from anything that could do them harm or disrupt their lives. Help villains by showing them that the world isn't so black and white. What if we all work together? We can strive for a better future. Uraraka hummed, except for what he'd said about before he knew All Might. None of the information was new. For as long as Uraraka had known him, Midoriya had wanted nothing more than to help others, and be seen as someone who could inspire hope and relief, just like All Might. She opened her mouth to speak, but closed it again upon not having words to share. Why she became a hero? The answer was plain and simple. Money, cash, the big bucks. Hero work put your life on the line, something the CAA didn't seem to know about. Thus, equal payment was widely accepted. Uraraka, wanting to help her parents, both her mother and father at the time, decided this route was the best to take. And so, years of schooling and training ate away at her, gnawing through her patience and hope, until little more than brittle dreams remained. Yet she held strong, held fast through the waves of naysayers and tidal waves of villains that she faced. Finally, there she was. She was a hero. Not just any hero, but Uravity, Japan's number 8 hero. But along the way, she'd lost more than she could gain back. Her father, bless his heart, had driven himself to the brink of death and back working at his construction company. He'd work overtime from the time his shift ended to the time the next began, just so his family could afford an apartment and 2 meals a day. He'd gotten sick during one particularly bad rainstorm. Insisting he was fine, that he didn't need to come in, he'd worked out there, lightning flashed and thunder boomed deafeningly. Yet neither of those would be what would do him in. Sopping wet from the rain, he came inside when his work was completed. It had been almost 6 hours since the storm had rolled over Father's work area. Eyes sunken in and teeth clattering like a skeleton, he stumbled through the door. Uraraka wasn't home for this, being away at Yue's dormitory for the events. She heard stories, though. Once her mother recounted as she cried over her husband's body during the funeral proceedings. Choked sobs wrecked through her chest, making her body shake as she stuttered through an incomplete sentence. The medical team had said pneumonia got him, specifically a heart attack brought on by it. Uraraka's mother had grieved for days, not leaving the picture of him that sat on their nightside. Days turned to weeks in which Uraraka had to sit with her mother, watching her cry and sleep. Maybe eat if Uraraka were lucky before doing it over. Weeks became months into years into the present day. Her mother in the clinic. What were her aspirations, dreams, hopes? A white picket fence, nuclear family, or a life of fighting crime as a hero, destined to be alone but save so many lives in the process. Stumbling through her words, Uraraka offered the man an answer. I don't know. I need to figure that out myself. Midoriya gave a wan smile, skin hardly crinkling beside his eyes. Uraraka couldn't help but take it as pity. You do that. He dipped his head a bit, eyes not leaving his hands. Oh, he seemed to remember the small box he still held and offered it to her. Here. Taking the box with a skeptical glance, Uraraka ran her hands over the cool cardboard. It was warmed on the sides from where Midoriya had held it, the man's hands bigger than her own by a rather large margin. After fumbling to break the layers of tape holding it closed, she got it open and her eyes widened in shock. Really? Uraraka's head snapped up to look towards the man, who sheepishly rubbed his head. Yeah? Is there something wrong with it? I can get you a new one. He was quick to panic, hands waving around a bit, not unlike Ida used to. No, Uraraka said hastily, clutching the device to her chest. I didn't even buy myself one this good as all. The clear-cased phone she held was one of the newest model, coming out only months ago. Uraraka had seen the price tag on one of these. It would have run her 140,000 yen with the hero's discount. She would hate to see what it would do to a civilian's wallet. Oh, don't worry about it. It's my get-well-soon gift for you. Midoriya smiled warmly, hands held together in his lap. It'll help you look for some jobs if you want to. I know your phone got destroyed in the accident. While she was thankful for the gift, Uraraka's smile was nothing if not forced. She was being pitied, babied, taken care of like some helpless child. She was a hero, wasn't she? Yeah, Japan's number 8 to be exact. Thank you, she said stiffly, her practiced smile likely not fooling the man. Midoriya wore the look just as often as she did, after all. Clearing her throat, she tried again. I mean, really, you didn't have to. Of course I did, he grinned. I wanted to help you any way I could after. His watch sounded, letting out a piercing chirp. It was a model designed to get the hero's attention whether they were sleeping or in a noisy area.